Good morning and welcome to my channels, Homestead in the Woods and Cook from the Past. I'm going to be including parts of this video in both, so just so you know, if I mention them both, that's why. So a lot going on here today. We've had a terrible problem with mosquitoes, and so my husband is probably going to be heard coming and going behind me here as he's trying to drain a very small shallow pond we got in front to try and deal with these mosquitoes. They've been coming in the house, so I'll fill you in later on what all happened with that. But today I'm going to be involved in making some einkorn bread. And einkorn is an ancient wheat that a lot of people who are sensitive to gluten, as I am, find that it doesn't bother them as much as regular wheat. Now, einkorn is an ancient grain, and it is the oldest recorded wheat that's ever grown on the planet. So it has a very different structure and a much lesser gluten content, which makes it a little tricky to cook with. But I'm going to be making some bread today from a sourdough levain that I created from einkorn wheat. My levain was created with wheat berries that I ground in my Vitamix, and the bread itself is going to be einkorn bread. Well, let me put the front here. So this is einkorn flour, and it comes from jovial.com. I've used it before. They have really excellent gluten-free and einkorn type products, so I do enjoy their products quite a bit. The other thing I'm going to be doing today is finishing up some yogurt that I started in my Instant Pot. Once it was done in the Instant Pot, I took it downstairs and put it in my refrigerator to cool down and more solidify. And from here, I'm going to be straining it, and then we're going to do a few other things. So stay with me, and we're going to get going first of all on that einkorn bread. So this is the sourdough starter. I began with this, and it's just water and some einkorn wheat berries that I ground up on May 6th. I don't know if you can see. I'm going to try and do this without pouring it all over the floor, but I'm trying to help you to see how bubbly that is. And ready to go. So in just a moment, we're going to be starting on this bread. It's important for me to get this going first thing this morning because the first rising for this particular dough is going to take 3 to 5 hours. So I don't want to be up in the middle of the night doing the final baking of this. So we're going to get it going right now. We're ready to get started with the einkorn bread. And the first thing I'm going to do is measure out how much of the starter. I don't know exactly, but I'm going to measure it as I go. Probably going to be about a cup. Okay, I will put that aside and then feed the starter in a little while. And starter is going to go into the bowl. So that is 1 cup of the starter. Okay, got that in. Put that over a little bit. Next thing that's going in is about 2 cups of warm water. And I'm just going to mix that up with a spoon. This type of dough, well, einkorn in general, is a very wet dough. It doesn't get kneaded like you think a loaf of regular white bread would be kneaded. It's only going to be what we need to do to incorporate the flour into the liquid. We don't knead it. We're going to be doing something called stretching the dough, and that is all that is necessary. Okay, the levain and the water are pretty well mixed. I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of a really good quality salt. I like the Redmond sea salt. It's called Redmond real salt. It's got a lot of nice minerals. Get it out of the bag here. Minerals in it. Yeah, it's a little bit more than a teaspoon, so I'll go lighter on the half. Okay, about 1.5 teaspoons of Redmond's real salt. And just mix that in. So I'm going to start adding the flour. This is a Jovial brand 100% organic einkorn flour. I'm going to try and give you exact measurements since you may want to do this yourself. So this is a 1/2 cup measurement. Clearly it's going to take a lot more than that. What we're going to be looking for initially is when all of the dry ingredients, the flour has been incorporated into the liquid. We're quite a ways off yet, so we'll keep going. Once all of the dry ingredients are incorporated into the wet, we're going to be putting a plate on top of this to give it 15 minutes to rest. And during that 15 minutes, the flour will be absorbing more of the moisture. Now, I have made this bread before, but it has been quite a few years since I've done that. So it's almost like this is brand new to me. I'm sure it will start feeling familiar once I get into it, but right now I am just kind of having to read that recipe and kind of play it by ear from memory on what this dough needs to look like. So 4.5. I'm not going to add too much because I'm not sure how much more we'll need. So 4.5 so far. And I'm making sure I'm scraping that bowl as I go to get all of the flour incorporated. And again, we're not looking for a dough that's ready to knead. It's still going to be quite sticky. So this is where we're at right now. I'm absolutely certain that it's not yet ready to turn out. There's nothing we could do to stretch this, so we'll add another 1/2 cup of the einkorn flour. So we're now up to 5. This is probably going to make 2 good size boule. I don't know how you pronounce it really. B-O-U-L-E. Nice round freeform loaves. Okay, I think we're going to be really close here. I'm just going to try and get all of the dry fully incorporated in there. And I think we will then be to the point of letting it rest for 15 minutes. All right, this is what it's looking like. And that looks about right to me. And yes, it's a very wet dough, but it will be absorbing more of the dry as it sits for the 15. All right, we're gonna cover that with a plate and put the timer on for 15 minutes, and we'll take a look at it then. Our 15 minutes are up, probably more like 20 now. So it's time to move to the next step, which is going to be to turn the dough out onto the counter here and stretch it. So, out of the way, just gonna get a little flour on here. This is the same flour, the Einkorn all-purpose flour. I will probably need more. So, that's how it's looking now. It definitely has tightened up, but is still sticky, as you can see. I think I'm going to give it a really good dusting of flour. I'm going to turn this so you can see it. Just how sticky this is. And remember, we're not going to knead it like regular bread is kneaded. All right. And from my recollection, this is about right. So I'm going to give my hands a good dusting too. I think a bench scraper really helps a lot with this process. As you can see, it's very sticky, but it's not really sticking to the counter. And it will incorporate some more flour as you go. And anytime it feels like it's trying to stick, give it a little bit more flour. That's perfectly okay. So the step we're doing here is to just kind of press it into a rectangle. Or a square. All right, so we stretched it. And now we're going to start folding it in on itself. So bring this corner over that way. This corner over that way. We'll go on the other side, that way. The last one over. And then we're going to fold it over on itself and put it back in the bowl. And in 15 minutes, we're going to do the same thing again. We'll just keep it covered. I'll set the timer for 15 minutes and we'll be back. Continuing on, 15 minutes have gone by again. And our dough has been resting. And we're going to turn it out again and do the very same thing. And yes, it is still sticky. And it will be. Because this is not a bread that you will knead like ordinary bread. You don't want to leave this bowl. All right. Get our hands. Dust it again. Scoot some more flour down there. All right. We're going to stretch it into a square or rectangle again. It's starting to feel very much like regular bread at this point. And the stretching it out is really key to making this bread. Get a little more flour down in here. All right, get your square. All right, gonna fold over one side. Fold over another side. Fold the third side. Fold the fourth side. And in half again. Back into the bowl. And another 15 minutes. 15 minutes are up again. Time to turn it out. And do the third stretch and fold. That's how we're looking. You can see it's starting to fluff up a little bit. And this is very different than other bread making for sure. But if it means you can eat delicious breads again, oh, absolutely. While I was eating gluten-free, I did create my own gluten-free bread recipe that was really quite good, but I was able to eventually transfer over to eating this instead of the gluten-free, and it's a lot more satisfying as well, because this is definitely more like what we're used to eating with bread. You know, flavor-wise, texture-wise. Get this last little bit out of here. There. So this is our third stretch and fold. And there's going to be one more after this. You can see this is starting to get a little easier to handle too. That's because we're kind of developing the gluten that is in here. It's just a more tolerable type of gluten for many people because it is ancient wheat. So this definitely qualifies as food from the past. All right, fold, 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 and fold. Back into the bowl. And we'll see you in 15 again. In the meantime, I'm probably going to do some dishes, fold some laundry, do whatever household chores you have to do anyway. And in the meantime, this dough is going to get happy in the bowl. And we will see you in 15 minutes. All right, we are ready to do the final folding. Get just a little bit more flour here. It's probably not going to need much more. All right, you can kind of, let me put it up here, see that it's starting to have some sponginess to it. That's a good thing. And out it goes. As soon as I have it on the counter, I'm going to throw this bowl in the sink and scrub it out, because after the stretch and fold number 4, that's when this is going to go into the bowl and hang out for 3 to 5 hours. I have some errands I'm going to need to run. My husband was working on getting that front pond, we call it our frog pond, cleaned out. We figured that was the source of the terrible scourge of mosquitoes that we've been having. So anyway, when he got to get the pump going again, it's been out for the winter. He got it going again. Well, it wouldn't go. So I'm going to need to go to the farm and feed store and pick up a new one if I can. And I've got 5 stops to make. So that means I'm pretty much going to be gone for the day. So that 3 to 5 hours will be about right. We don't live close to town, and so anytime I have to go into town, that is going to be my day. So it's a good thing I got this going early. And, oh, come on. Oh, man. The dough is definitely tightening up, which is what we want. Okay, I'm going to run this bowl into the sink real fast. All right. I think we'll be fine with the amount of flour that's on this counter right now. Yep. Tell you what, I don't know what I do without this bench scraper. If you're going to work this dough, you have got to have one. All right, time to stretch it. There is no bypassing this stretching thing that we're doing. It's a very, very important part of this process. That is what is going to make this bread hold together and rise and have a nice texture. I'm actually stretching it a little farther out this time. And over it goes. Over. Last time. All right, very good. I'm going to go get that bowl cleaned real fast, and then we'll finish up here. Okay, bowl has been washed, nice and clean, so we won't have a bunch of stuff sticking to it. So I'm just going to put a little dab of flour down in there. Kind of made it into a bowl. There it is. I'm going to cover this with some saran wrap, because you really want a nice, good seal on it. If you got press and seal, that's fine. Whatever is going to give you a good seal over your bowl, that's what you want. Okay, we are good. And I'm going to leave it here on the kitchen counter, just kind of put it under my lights back here where it will stay warm. And 3 to 5 hours, we will be back. Hello, and welcome back to Cook from the Past. I'm Catherine, and I'm here to report back on how it went with the einkorn bread that I was making. So I think where I left you off is we were going to be letting it rest for 3 to 5 hours while I went and did some chores. And when I came back from those 3 to 5 hours, the bread had not risen to the amount that I would be happy with. And so it actually spent the entire night going into that rising process. And so it took that much time. And it's okay to be patient, especially when you're working with a new sourdough starter. So Fast forward a little bit, once it was ready to go into the bowls to finish the last rise, I was using these baskets, right? Well floured, and so once it got into the basket, it actually rose up very, very quickly, and so I was able to cook the bread at the end of the day. So what happened was, when I went to get the bread dough out of this basket onto the parchment, which would then be going into a preheated cast iron Dutch oven, it went flat. As it turned out onto the parchment paper, it stuck in the bowl, and the top part that would have that nice design on it was still inside the bowl. So what I ended up doing was I peeled it out of here and very carefully put it back on the top of the loaf. Not ideal, but I wanted it to have that nice look. So that's what I did. I was also disappointed that because it went through so much trauma coming out of that basket onto the parchment, that it actually deflated quite a bit. But I went ahead, I got it onto the parchment, put the parchment down into that preheated cast iron Dutch oven, and put it in the oven and held my breath and crossed my fingers and said a prayer. And I was really surprised at how nice it came out. So here it is. You can kind of see that I had to reapply this top part, but you know what? It's still pretty, it still tasted good, and I'm going to keep trying. It had been a very long time since I'd made any einkorn bread, and it was worth it. We've eaten one of these already. So I'm going to keep trying, and if you would like to subscribe, share, and like this video, you'll be notified when I make the next einkorn bread video, which will be fairly soon. So stay tuned, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for coming.